Syed, sir.
I'm here.
Okay, sir. Shall we start, sir?
Yes, yes.
Yes, sir. Welcome back, participants. I extend my warm welcome to our resource person of this session, Dr. S.P. Syed Ibrahim. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
It's my honor to introduce our resource person. S.P. Syed Ibrahim received his bachelor's, master's, and PhD in computer science and engineering. He is working as a professor for the past 7 years at VIT Chennai. He is a recipient of VIT Researcher Award for the last 6 consecutive years. He has also received a Best Faculty Award from VIT for the year 2016 and EMC Academic Alliance Award for the year 2013. With 13 years of teaching experience, he has published more than 75 research papers in journals and conferences. He has provided guidance for more than 50 MTech student projects and currently guiding 3 PhD scholars. He has delivered more than 100 invited talks in the international conferences and workshops. He has organized 5 short-term courses on data analytics for students from universities abroad and also organized DST-sponsored national workshop on data science research. He was a founder coordinator for a data analytics research group in VIT, and during his tenure, he had introduced MTech CSE with a specialization in big data analytics in the year 2013, a first of its kind in India. So it's time to hand over the session to our resource person. Welcome, sir. You can take over the session now.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Can you give me that option for share my screen?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So good morning, friends. It's nice to meet all of you today. And are you able to see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Is it in full screen mode?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. So the topic given to me is all about the deep learning application. So my way of presentation of today's session will be like for the completeness, I will give you some input about our fundamentals of deep learning, what is AI and all the other things. It's just for about 2 to 3 minutes of time. I know that you are having about 5 days of this session AI, so you know better than me. So, but even though it's for the completeness, I want to give that introduction. Then I will take you to the deep learning application development, where initially I will start with one framework, say like Keras, and I will show you what are the different components available with the deep learning application, and we will break down all these components, and then we will try to understand each and every component. And from that, you can understand how we can develop any application. Then finally, if time permits, I will show you one application, say like malware detection or malware analytics by using deep learning, where I will show you that one architecture, and you will explain me how, what are the things you are able to understand from that. So that could be my flow of my presentation. Let me start. So as you know that it's a deep learning is nothing but it's a subfield of machine learning in AI, and the logically we have to understand deep learning in a different way. That's what's the difference is we want to give that intelligence to the machine. There is no way we have to understand that. That's fine. That is all about artificial intelligence. We want to give artificially some intelligence to the machine. But here in deep learning, we will see with respect to biological structure of our functioning of brain, and this will be simulated as the machine. I mean, that will be simulated to the machine, so that how our brain is learning, how our brain is reacting for any activity, the same way the system should also apply that intelligence with respect to each and every condition. That's the way how we want to develop our deep learning framework. And you know that it's AI is nothing but quality intelligence that to be introduced to the machines. So what is intelligence here? So we can divide that intelligence into 2 different types. One is all about explicitly programmed. So what's the meaning of this is, I can give you about 2 examples, say like washing machine and ATM machine. Now I can say they are having some intelligence. You can also agree on it, right? So there is some intelligence is available with those machines. How that intelligence is provided to machine is the programmers are, the engineers are already written some kind of rules to the machine. Say like ATM machine, they will say like if the card is inserted, ask the pin. Then if the pin is right, go into that, and then we have, based on the option given by the user. Based on the option given by the user, 1 minute. Yeah, based on the option given by the user, do the activity what is given. That is, we explicitly already programmed our intelligence to the machine. So it will take that pin number and all the other activity, and then it will count that how much amount it should give to you. That will be given to you. Then another one is all about without explicitly programmed. That is all about what we are training by using our data analytics frameworks. So we have about ML, machine learning. So what is machine learning is given by about Andrew Ng, that Stanford professor gave a wonderful definition for it, where he says like introducing intelligence without explicitly programming. The meaning here is we make our machine to learn the data or to learn the knowledge from the historical data. So that's the way how our AI framework AI is working. So ML and all the other things will come under AI. So here we can say we can see some examples for machine learning. So say like predicting a student whether he will fail or pass in a test, fail or pass in a subject. But here there is assume that there is no rule is already exist. We have to decide the rule. The system should decide the rule based on the historical data. So what it should do is it should understand the pattern from the data, and it should apply that pattern for the new transactions. Okay, now the question will come to you. You already started with your AI session, and I saw that your schedule. In that schedule, it says some AI part, then you have some kind of machine learning part also. Now, the last part of that session is all about deep learning. Okay, now the question is, why deep learning? Why everyone is actually thinking about deep learning? Why everyone wants to jump to deep learning? Is it here we have to understand something about ML and difference between ML to DL? Then only you will be able to answer this question. The first one is all about ML is good. Machine learning is good for some variety of problem, but it fails to excel in some specific cases. Say like if you want to classify a cat or dog, or audio clip as a man voice or male voice or female voice or something like that, if you ask your machine learning to train and then do this, the machine learning system fails in this case. Why it is failed is because the data, it is unable to process those data. It is not good for unstructured data and image kind of process, image kind of data. So your machine learning fails in that particular point of time. So who is helping us? The deep learning is coming into picture. Our deep learning will help us in where the ML is not performing well. So that could be the objective of introducing deep learning and understanding about the deep learning. So what the deep learning will do is it will provide us a better performance. It will give us better performance one and only, or if and only if we have a surplus data. So if we have huge data which is not dealt by machine learning, then only we should go for deep learning. That most of the researchers are missing this point, where whenever there is a interaction with our friends, everyone will say about deep learning. I'm working on deep learning. If I ask the question, say why you are using this deep learning, they are unable to answer it. One. The second one is they may have a very small data and they want to apply deep learning, and they will say, sir, I'm not getting that better results. And that when I search on it, always I can understand that the availability of data is very less on their case. So we should have some kind of rule of, we have some new rule of thumb. The new rule of thumb, what it says is, if data is very less, we can use just statistical modeling, which is very good enough. And If you have little more data and if you need some kind of good insights, go for machine learning. If you are able to achieve some achieve in terms of accuracy, or if the performance is good with the machine learning, no problem, keep that alone and complete your task. Don't go for deep learning. Deep learning will not perform well if you have less data. But if you have huge data, in terms of say like a big data or some kind of unstructured data which takes a lot of time to process, that is computationally it is not feasible, not possible for machine learning. But if these kind of computationally impossible things, we can use our deep learning things. So these are some of the definition. I hope you are very much comfortable with the different things. Say like AI, what is AI, what is ML, and what is deep learning. So AI is nothing but introducing intelligence to the machines artificially. That's that we have to understand. And ML is nothing but sub field of AI where we have to introduce without explicitly programming. Program. Third one is all about deep learning. Is nothing but again it is without explicit programming. It's correct. Then we should understand about one more point is biologically function. That is, we have to mimic the biological function of the human brain in deep learning. That is, artificial neural network concept will be involved here. So that is all about my introduction part. Now I will take you to the deep learning model, and we will decompose each and every component of this deep learning to understand that component in a better way. Okay. So from my perspective, we can divide our deep learning model into two things. One is structure wise, another one is learning wise. So structure wise is nothing but we want to understand about what is this structure. Say like what is input, what is layer, what is output, and all the other kind of this information we have to understand. The next one, what we have to understand is all about learning. That I will come back to that later. So before start of this learning, we need to understand about what is input, neuron, what is activation function, layer, weight, and all the other output. So this is equivalent, or this is the same thing will be available in our artificial neural network also. But here there is some difference with ANN and deep learning. What is the difference? I will let you know in the coming slides. Okay. So here we are saying like deep learning or deep neural network. Is it a new one? Is deep learning is new? Any one of you can answer? Are you there, anyone?
Yes, sir. What, sir?
Can you define, is deep learning new?
Deep learning is new.
Are you sure?
No, sir.
No. Okay. Any other answer? Are you claiming that deep learning is new to us, or new to that world, or new to that researchers?
No, not at all.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Actually, the ANN came into exist in the year around 1948. I can say like 1950s, and after that again they stuck with the problem of XOR problem. Then they come up with some back propagation. Those algorithms came in the year 1970s period. So on the time itself, deep learning was exist actually. But the only major challenge with the deep learning is we don't have the computation or large amount of data on that period. So what I'm saying is, in 1990s, in 1970s or 70 to 80 period, that period only that there is a boom for neural networks. After the back propagation, and they are able to find multi-layer perceptron on during 1970s, 78, I guess, if I'm correct. Otherwise, it's in the 1982. In that, then only the neural network came in, started booming up about it. But again, that is not booming in a better way. Why? On those period, we don't have any computationally huge computational things. That is, heavy machines are not available, GPU is not available, so they have very less memory first, and other than that, computation is also very less. And the data, as they don't have a huge storage capacity, first they are unable to store the data. the second one is all about collecting the data itself. It's a tough task on those time. But now we are living in a world where we have huge amount of data with us, and computationally we are well versed right now, as we have distributed systems and GPUs, and all these things enable us to do with a lot of activity with a huge amount of data. So deep learning is not new. That's the point. So what you have to understand is it is not new. It is very old, but it is booming now as we have huge computation with us. Are you able to understand what I'm talking? Is it make sense?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, now why we call this as a deep learning? We are adding, initially it is ANN. ANN is nothing but having some input and one or not more than two hidden layers and output layer. But now we call this as a deep neural network. What is the meaning of deep is, here we make that as a deep in terms of adding more hidden layers into the existing network. So if I say like only two layers, it is all about a simple multi-layer perceptron. Even if I use activation function, something like that, or it's a very simple artificial neural network. But now I'm saying like it's the layers are 1 to n, meaning that you can add any number of layers over here and any number of nodes also here. So that makes our network very deep, and on the same time it will be able to compute in a better way. Okay, fine. I hope now I am able to give you about that some introduction about deep learning. Initially we saw about what is AI, ML, and why deep learning. Now I showed you what is deep learning. Now hereafter my flow will be like this, where I will take one sample example, say like some three features are as the input and two outputs, and I will take this as the general framework, and I will explain you how we can develop this application. Okay. To understand this, we should understand about, as I already said, we should understand about the structure first. So some input and output and nodes and all the other terms are available. We have to understand it. As of now, we can. The point is, we are here. We are giving three different inputs, and we want to get some outputs. So what is this problem, or this? What is this application is? We want to understand whether a particular student will pass or fail in a particular subject or some semester or whatever it is. But here we are giving three different inputs. One is age attribute, and hours of how many hours he is studying, and average previous test score. All this information is given to the system, and we want to see how we have to develop a deep learning application over here. Okay. So the first point, what you have to understand is the input data. So initially we saw that as a input data is nothing but three different attributes or three dimensions. That is fine. But in general, your deep learning will understand only about tensors. So what is tensors? Have you heard about it? Any idea about it?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Yeah, tell me.
So it is a n-dimensional matrix.
N-dimensional matrix. So how if I say our case study is all about taking some students' information and see whether he is pass or fail. Can we consider as the n-dimensional data? Is it the n-dimensional data?
Yes, sir. If we consider many features.
No, n maybe 2 also, 3 also, it's right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm saying like I'm giving the data set, right? The data set consists of about say like 3 attributes. What are they? Here we have age, then number of hours studied, and the last previous test score, something like that, right? So can we consider this as a n-dimensional array?
Yes. No.
Yes.
No.
Yes, sir. Yes, we can
Yes, sir,
consider.
Yes.
Correct. It's a time. So here we have some transactions. We will have something, right? So we can
Yes,
consider this as a okay. Rather than like it's whether it's a n-dimensional, x-dimensional, or m-dimensional, leave that. It is a table. If there is a table, then we can say that as a tensor. It is nothing but rows and columns. It's a two-dimensional thing. So two-dimensionally we can define this tensor. If I have three dimension, it is not a problem. Three different dimensions will be there in there, right? And four dimension, yes, always possible. What is the four dimension of all these things? I will come back to in the short. I will come back. So now
So typically it means that number of inputs.
Number of inputs. We can represent our input as the tensors. I can say like this. I don't say like opposite is not right.
Tensor is an types of inputs, number of inputs, like?
No, ma'am. It is tensor is not an input, or we should not say it's an input. I am saying like input type is in the terms of tensor. What is tensor is? It's a row and column kind of structure.
Okay.
It's a n-dimensional matrix. We should say, let's say it's a n-dimensional matrix.
It's not a types of input or number of inputs.
No.
Okay, sir. Okay. Continue,
Actually,
sir. Continue.
Whatever the data we have to convert the data into tensors. I will go to the next slide. I will go to next slide. I hope you can understand that point. Otherwise, I will come back to you and then I will ask you. I will try to give you some solution for you.
Definitely. Okay, sir. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. So here I am saying like it's a tensor. That is, your deep learning will read only tensors. Now we have some data. We should understand how to give the data as tensors. What is tensor here? Tensor is nothing but n-dimensional matrix. So if I say two-dimensional, it's not a problem. It's a row. Each row is my one dimensional according to me, and each and every transaction will become row and column representation. So I can have as a whole matrix. It's a n-dimensional matrix, n column and n row, or m column, n row. That is not a problem. Now that is all about n-dimensional data. Fine. The next one is all about, it is homogeneous numeric matrix. This point is very, very important. We should understand that it is a homogeneous numeric matrix. So your data should be in the terms of numerical values, say like 1, 2, something like that, or some other numerical format. It should not be categorical data. We have to think about it. This point, next slide will give you the answer. Kindly understand this point alone as of now. Okay, now as I already said, the tabular column is nothing but two-dimensional tensor. We can say like each column of training sample will become row, or we can take that as a m column and n rows. And opposite is always true. We can have row as one representation and column as the next representation. Fine. As I already said, your deep learning will understand only numerical data, or your tensor will take only the numerical data. In that case, how can I do that? I may have about a lot of categorical data. So if we have categorical data, try to do like use the concept called one-hot encoding, convert the data into numerical format. So what is the numerical format? Is say like gender. Okay, gender may be male or female. So if male, then say like 0, and then for female represented as 1. Now did I convert my categorical data into numerical data?
Yes, sir.
Right. So in that case, will all my data will be like in the numerical data, right?
Yes, we have to convert.
We have to convert the data, categorical data, by using then one-hot encoding. So the data will become numerical data. Then even then your data will become matrix format with numerical data. Understood?
Yes.
Yeah, one madam is asking about that question. Whether that ma'am, are you able to understand the point here? The input, I said like input should be as the tensor. Is there any doubt on this?
No, sir.
Okay, I may go for the next one. Okay, sir. Now you are saying like you may ask me the question. Say like, sir, if 2D, no problem. Rows and columns, I can give as a tensor. It's a n-dimensional matrix as n rows and m columns, or n by n, that's whatever it is. Fine. But now I have to deal. I wish to deal with image. What should I do? Dealing with the image is not a problem again. As further only we have the concept of tensor. Tensor we can expand to any dimension. As of now, if you say like it's a 3-dimensional data, so what will happen is you can represent your one image in, say, like color image. If a black and white, we can represent it in a two-dimensional. But if you have about say like color image, then we can represent it with the three-dimensional tensor. Okay. For that, what will happen is, one dimension will be like for pixel, row and column. Then second one is all about the next image, and third one is all about your color. So that in that way we can represent our image in terms of our 3D representation. Even 4D is also always possible. Why? How the 4D will come is, if I have 100 images is, each and every image is different, right? So I can represent 512 cross 512. If I do like this, it will become a 4D where 512 cross 512 for one image, and for 3 color things means it will become another dimension. This 3 is representing for your color. Okay, and this another 4th dimension is for the number of images. So each and every image will have this kind of concept. So your tensor will become now 4D tensor, where one dimension is for your row-wise pixel, another one is for column-wise pixel, and the third dimension is for color, and 4th dimension is for number of images. Are you able to understand this point? Is there any doubt till now?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay, fine. So till now we saw about what is input. Now we should understand how this input can be given to the deep learning framework. So the first layer of your deep learning should be an input layer, where it should read the input from the tensor. So we have to define your deep learning framework. Say like here I am using Keras. It's a high-level API, very simple to use. It is easy for you to understand. After, if you are able to understand this, yeah, you can use any kind of framework and you can do that. So now what we are doing is, we are taking the data and we are giving us the first input layer. That is, input layer is the first layer. Now say like if I have about a table with 10 features and 1,000 samples are there. Okay, so say like it's all about 10 features. I will write it clearly. So I have 10 features, dot 1 to 10, and here the transaction will be 1 to about 1,000, right? 1,000 transactions. Now if I want to give like this, I have to define my input dimension and this line. Kindly understand this line. I will explain all the other lines in the coming slides. Okay. Now, as you can understand that I want to give 10 features as the input, right? So here I have to define input dimension should be 10. Are you able to understand the first point? I want to give some input. My input consists of 10 features. After converting into by using one-hot encoding, I have about 10 features. So my input dimension or input layer, number of nodes in the input layer should be 10. All the other points I will give you in the coming slides. After giving this input, always we should do a normalization, standardization, or scaling. Why we have to do is, or what is the meaning of doing is, the tensor may have some numerical value. You are saying like it's all are numerical value. The range may be in minus infinity to plus infinity. So if you have that kind of value, then it is very difficult for us to use our system, as the activation function will not work properly. So we have to normalize the data so that it will avoid that outliers and all other things. So the data we will make us range from 0 to 1. Whatever the data you have in your data set, it won't be a problem. All the data will convert that into 0 to 1 range. The next one is all about we can have a standardization, min-max standardization, or some other way, where what it will do is, it will make the mean as 0 and standard deviation as 1. So why we have to do all these things is, if you do like this, it will improve your, it will reduce the computation and learning will be very good, as all the activation function will behave appropriately if you have some kind of normalization and all the other things. Okay. Now the next, so till now what we are able to understand is, the first one we are able to understand as how to give the input. How to give the input? Can anyone give me the clue? If I have 3 inputs, what could be my, how can I give that input to the system?
So 3 nodes.
3 nodes, right? How input dimension should be 3 according to this case. If you have all are numerical, but if you have some different range, you should convert that into 1 by using 1 hot encoding. Accordingly, you should give that input. Finally understand that. Okay. As of now, we consider this all are in a numerical data. Okay, fine. So now the next point, so we are able to understand about the neuron. Input. Input, we should give some input data, and that data will be given as a tensor. Then after giving that, we should apply normalization and standardization to make our system work properly, our deep learning system work properly. Up to that, we are able to understand. Right. The next command, what we have to understand is neurons. So it's a neuron is actually it's mimicking our brain activity. What the brain our activity will do is, if a lot of signals will be going to our brain, where if anything is something higher level, say like some threshold, if it's more than that of threshold, then that particular neuron will activate, then particular activity will happen in our body. The same way, they have the concept of neuron in deep learning or neural network, where all the computation will happen and output will be executed. What is the meaning here is, you will get some input, it will add all the input and multiply and all the other some activity will happen there, and according to that activation function, what it should do, everything is based on the inputs from all the other nodes. So what will happen is, the neurons, it will take input from one or more input other layers, other neurons of previous layer, and it will do the summation of sum of all the multiply. It will multiply the weights with its value, and finally it will come to the one value. And if it's more than that of threshold, it will do the activity according to the activation function. What is activation function? That we have to see in the next slide. Okay. So here it is nothing but, we will take some data, do some multiplication, and if it's more than that, do this. Otherwise, don't do that. Okay. So who will take care of that? That activity will be taken care of by activation function. This the meaning of this activation function is, if that multiplied value is, generally we will have a f of x. Okay, f of x is nothing but, we will have the concept of, say like the each and every attribute value, and there will be associated weight. Okay, that weight will be multiplied, and all the other something like that, each and every attribute and its weight, and finally there will be some bias also. So all these things will be added, multiplied and added, and you will get some f of z value, right? That z value will be applied on your activation function. We have some activation function. What is activation function? Or in detail we have to understand that. That may be in the next. So according to its output, the reaction will happen. That is activity will happen. So this is for one neuron. The same kind of activity will happen with all the neurons. What is activation function? It is nothing but, it's a mimicking that active or deactive function of our brain, where according to the input, it will apply a function on it, and it will pass the output value. So we have different types of activation function. According to that output, there will be it will pass the output value. Okay. In this point, you should know about something about linear and non-linear activation functions. The first point is all about, if there is no activation function. Okay, here, if I don't have any activation function, what will happen?
We
Can
cannot
anyone
predict
answer
the
my?
answer. We cannot predict the
You can't.
answer.
Okay. Are you guys able to understand activation function in general, in common, in general idea?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, right. So there will be some input. If I don't apply any activation function, or even if I say like if I apply identical activation function, that is whatever the output I want to get that output as it is possible always, but you will get a numerical value. Why we will get a numerical value is actually all these things are multiplication, right? Some value may be there, if then all the value will be added and you will get some kind of numerical value. Understood here? Or continuous value. So if I apply identical function or there is no activation function, I will get just a value. But if I want to have some kind of classification kind of things, I may require some kind of solid output, say like 0 or 1, or say like pass, fail. Sorry, something like that. So according to that, we have to apply some different activation function. In that case, we should understand about linear and nonlinear activation function. So here, if I don't have any activation function, or if I have linear activation function, what will happen is with the output, I may get a continuous output. And other than that, if I have a linear activation function, what is linear activation function is if the function is if you are able to derivative, if the derivative becomes 0, then I can call that activation function as linear activation function. If you use linear activation function in deep learning, it will not work out. First of all, I hope you are able to understand activation function. Now I am saying about linear activation function. Next will be nonlinear activation function. So activation function, we have to apply some function where it's nothing but z equal to f of x. So f of x is nothing but a summation. Here we have to apply some function. If you apply function and if you apply linear function, say like if 0, if it's greater than this threshold, say 1. If less than threshold, 0. Something like that. If you define as a linear activation function, then we can't use our linear activation function in our deep learning. Why we can't use it? As we are having back propagation. What is back propagation? Do you know about it? Or should I explain?
No, sir, no.
What do you mean by no? No for you know back propagation or don't know back propagation? Hello?
Sir?
Sir? What is the meaning actually? Are you do you know about is there any session given to you for back propagation? Are you guys able to understand what is back propagation?
No, sir. No, sir.
No. Okay, then I have to explain. Wait for a minute. Okay, and now I have to take this image and then I will explain. Okay, now I have to explain you back propagation. Then you can. Ma'am, can you please mute yourself? Okay. Now, actually, we are giving some input. There will be some activity will happen with the neuron by using this activity function and all the other things, and you will get some output, right? Say like I have to get the output, say like pass for the particular candidate, but I am getting some error. Say like I am getting failed in the output for the particular transaction, for the particular test transaction. Say like with some attribute, the class label is actually pass. I'm not getting pass over here, or in other words, I have to say like I getting pass and the out. Okay, this is my test sample, and if I feed this test sample for my model, I'm getting that output as probability, pass probability as 0.8%. That is 80% assurance. False will be 0.2%. Understood? It's a probability output. Probability output can I get like this? 0.8%. That is 80% chances for pass and 20% chances for fail. Can I get the output something like this? Are you able to understand here this point? Always my deep learning will say it is output is pass with this much percentage and fail with this much percentage. Probability of fail will be 20%. Probability of output for this particular transaction is this. Are you able to understand what I'm talking here?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Correct. But here my output should be 100% probability. Yes, understood, not understood? Probability pass should come as 100%, or that is 1, and fail should come as 0. Understood? But I'm getting in a little opposite, or not opposite. Some error is there with my output. Understood? The probability what I'm expecting is 100% probability for pass and 0% probability for fail for a particular output. But I am getting as 0.8 for pass and 0.2 for fail. Is it error in my output?
Yes, sir.
Right? This error should be, why this error is coming is, here we have some weight, initial weight, and we have some kind of value for each transaction, say like age maybe 8 or something like that, some value will be there. These two values are multiplied and here it will get that Z value. Then we applied activation function here. Correct? Something like that, it will pass all the nodes, and the output layer we will get the probability, something like this. This actually a error. What is the meaning of error is, I have to get probability as 1, but I am getting a probability of 0.8. So the error is 0.2. Why I am getting this error? Actually, the weight are not proper in this case. That could be the assumption. So I have to update all the weights for the neurons. Guys, are you able to understand what I'm talking initially, or should I explain the neural network first and then I have to come here? My understanding is actually you had already had a deep learning introduction, so I just come to this stage. Should I explain completely?
How do we get the weights, sir?
Initially, it will be random. Then, for each and every iteration, you will update the weight. Then, this is known as supervised learning. That's the meaning of supervised, actually.
Okay.
Okay. Now, in that case, I think I have to explain it completely. I have to do that. Otherwise, it may be waste of all our time. Just give me about 2 minutes of time. I will give you that explanation. Okay. Now, understand, this is the, I hope you can understand this structure at least. Input, some neurons will be there, some layer and output. Understood?
Yes, sir.
This is the just a ANN. Okay, consider ANN. Deep learning is nothing but we can add 1 more layer or 2 more layer or 3 more layer. Nothing. It's a symbol. Now, when you do like this, if you design a network, artificial neural network, there will be some input nodes and output nodes. What is input node is, it is depends on our input, and output is depends on our output, what is expected. Say like if you need pass or fail, there are 2 outputs, you can have 2 different outputs and you can get different probability for each output layer, or even you can have 2 or even 1 have multiple outputs in the same thing. Here the output, generally you will get the output as in terms of probability. Okay, you will have some input data, say like training data. You will feed that input here, and then you will have some test data, and the test data will have some result. Yes, say like he is pass or fail. Some that output will also be there with test data also. Now, what will you do is, in initial phase, you will design some kind of layers in a basic layers, and you will design the network something like this, and you will assign some random weight. The first step, random weight for each and every connection. What is the meaning here is, I will have some value, correct? Here the age may be 8, yes or no? Here I may have the random weight, say like 0.8. I have to multiply these two, I will get something, right? Something like that. I will get that weight and multiply it with that value for this node. Each and every, it's a fully connected actually. So all the 3 inputs and all the 3 inputs give me 3 different values. I have to add all the values, and there will be some bias. and if you add all these things, I will get some kind of value. Then I will apply activation function. That activation function may be linear or non-linear. I am explaining that point. That is one. If I apply all these things, and finally I will get some output, right? It will go to all the other phase, and finally I will get that output. The output will be something like this. For the particular student, probability of pass is 0.8 and probability of fail is 0.2. Okay. Something like I have one transaction, probability that output of the transaction is false. Okay. Now for this input, say like some age and some hour of study and all the other things, this is given as the input. Ma'am, there is some noise. Can you mute yourself? Coordinator ma'am, can you please mute that particular Ma'am, I don't have option of mute. Can anyone help me to mute Mr. Supil? Hello, Mr. Susil? I will unmute and then talk. Yeah, thank you. So now, so this will be the initial phase. Then if you do like this, you will apply your activation function and all the other things, and you will get the probability output. Always deep learning will give you the probability output. Say like pass will be like 0.8 and fail will be 0.2. Here only we have the concept of supervised learning. So what is supervised learning is, when you get this kind of output, based on this output, you can fine tune your model. That is, here with respect to what is the meaning over here is, here I have some 0.8 is the output. Sorry, wait. Because of this 0.8 output only, my output is not coming. It may be 0.9 or it may be 0.7. Then only the output is right. Correct? So what we have to do is, here, if you say that I want the probability as pass percentage should be 1. Here we have 0.8. So we can say that error is 0.2. This error, we are getting the error over here, 0.2. This error should be adjusted. That is, if I adjust all the weights, I will get 0. Understood this point?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Understood.
So now I should go here. Initially, I moved in this direction. That is, I gave some input. Then some kind of multiplication and all the other things, applying activation function, and then here, and finally we got the output. This is feed forward network. Feed forward. We are forward. We moved forward. Now this error should be updated with. That is, the error should be updated to all the weights. That is, it should go in this direction. That is, in the opposite direction. That here we call this as back propagation. The weight is nothing but we have to propagate the error. That is, the error should be up. This weight should, each and every weight should be updated to reduce this error. How we can do that? We have to use this calculus. In calculus will help us. We understood about derivatives, right? Partial derivatives and derivatives. And if I want to update the weight, that is, change in weight will reflect here, here, as well as here. If I update something, all these things should be updated. So each and every many nodes are associated, right? So here we have to use the calculus. That is, what is calculus here is, what is the change of rate, change in the weight, that we have to understand. Dou x by dou y, the dx by ds, that's the derivatives. Those things we have to understand. So little bit about calculus we should understand. Then we have the concept called chain rule. What is the chain rule is, if you want to update this, you can't just update here. You have to update all the points. Here 3 inputs are coming to this node, correct? So you have to update these 3. If you update these 3, then all the other will reflect. So something like that, one is associated with all the other nodes. So we have to have a concept called chain rule. We have to update all the weights to the towards back. So this concept is known as back propagation. Did you understand this, what I'm talking up to this?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So now we saw about input, then we have a normalization, then we understood about the neuron. What is neuron? I already explained that. Each and every weight will be there, and value will also be there. We have to multiply and we have to add all the value, and including bias, we will get some value. Then we will apply activation function. Here I am explaining you about what is activation function. That is, the activation function will activate or deactivate the function according to the value. What is this? Here, before to go into that, we have to understand about linear and non-linear activation function. We should use only non-linear. That is, the data will be something like linearity should be there in your activation function. If we say linear, it will be like this. That is, you may get 0 or 1. That is all about linear. But linear will not work out, as if you have a linear and if you go for the derivative dx by dy, if anything is the linear, then it will become 0. Correct? Derivative will become 0. So we should not use linear activation function. We should use only the nonlinear activation function. What is nonlinear activation function? One of the example is sigmoid activation function. Here you can see, if value is 0, then it's a little actually 0 to, it will be 0. Sorry, some minus here. Z is nothing but summation. If summation is something about minus, then it is become 0. If the Z is something 0, then it actually is something it's moving up. Correct? So with respect to Z, the value is changing. The activation output is changing according to the activation. I mean log function e power minus Z. So here you are getting some non-linearity. Understood? Not understood? This point.
Clear, sir. Clear.
Thank you. Another some of the other activation function is ReLU is the other activation function. Say like if it's 0, then always 0. If it's more, summation is more than 0, then there will be some kind of function according to that ReLU. We will get that some kind of that is maximum of 0, or is that something like we have some kind of activation function. So you should understand about different activation functions. We have some leaky ReLU. Then some other activation functions are available. So these activation function will take the input, and according to that summation, it will apply its function and it will give us some kind of activation. I mean, it will activate or deactivate according to the output. Okay. Till now we saw about it. Now the next important thing is we have to create a model. That is, we have to add these nodes and we have to create as a model. So here we have one model is known as sequential model. So what is the sequential model is? Here we will have some kind of layers, and we have to add all these layers. Say like, I will explain. So here input is there, right? Input is one layer, and another one is all about one hidden layer and second hidden layer, something like this. Correct? Now I am having as a sequential thing. This is known as sequential. I have one layer at a time. Input layer is first, then I have some other layer, then I have some other layer, something like that. I have made it. So this is nothing but sequential area, sequential model. So we can add different layers to do this. Say like here I am giving you one example. Here, what is the meaning? I hope you can explain this to me. What I am doing in this particular step?
15 inputs.
15 inputs. So how many attributes I have? 15 attributes. Very good. Okay. Now I am having 15 inputs, and sorry. Yeah. The next here, that point you know. Next one is all about, I am saying like 10. Make it as model.add 10 and this. So what is the meaning here is, I will have 15 inputs. Okay. And I should have 10 nodes, and it should be connected. Got the point? Here dot dot dot, it will be 10. Why 10? Input, sorry, it's a 15, correct? 15. Why 15?
Input is 15.
Input is 15. So all the input I am giving, all the dimension I am giving as an input node. So 15 nodes should be created. And the next one is all about hidden layer. How many nodes in the hidden layer, or how many neurons in the hidden layer?
10.
10. That we have defined using this. The next one is all about we are defining as dense. Here, what is dense over here is it's a different types are available. At least I will let you know this alone now, but I will explain all the each and everything in the coming slide. So very basically, what you have to understand is dense means each and every node should connect to all the other nodes. That is all about dense. So meaning over here is all these 10 nodes should connect to all the input nodes. That is fully connected. If you take, if I draw, it will be too ugly. At least you can understand that as this particular node. If you take particular input node, it should connect to all the nodes. Understood? Something like that. Every input node should connect to all the next hidden node, or next node, I should say, next layer. That we are defining here. And what is the activation function I have used?
ReLU.
So here it has some value, say like some value. Here there will be some weight. These two will be added and some multiplied, and something like that. All the nodes will have something, or each and everything will be added, and ReLU activation function will be applied. So
Sir, other than sequential, is there any other model we can have?
Sorry.
Here you have defined dot model equals to sequential, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Other than sequential, is there any other model exists, or only sequential?
I'm not sure. Mostly it's a sequentially we have to add. That's the only thing I can. I have to refer and I have to let you know, ma'am. Here yeah. Here maybe like sequential meaning like this. And maybe like it's a function we want to add as a sequential, but if you have it as a single node, then there is no meaning actually. So here actually we want to ask how we want to add the layers. So here we are defining as the sequential model.
Yes. That's I understood. Sequential I got, but other than sequential,
other than that, I don't think so.
Arrange.
I don't think so.
Okay, sir. And what is the bias value here? You said bias is also there.
Yes, ma'am.
So how to take that bias value here, and what is that exactly?
Kindly wait for 2 more minutes. I will have some slides for it. If on the time you may understand it very clearly.
Okay.
As of now, if I explain, actually all the others may miss the point. Was I have to explain all these things in the later slides.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Yes. Give me some time. I will come to that. Okay. The next one is all about layers. So here the layers is nothing but what we are adding or what kind of activity we want to do. We should have some kind of network structure for it. So here we have different types of layers. Initially, we should understand about the dense layer. The dense layer is nothing but if one node is, we have to say like the particular layer, all the nodes should connect it to the previous layer. So here, if I say this is the dense layer, layer 1, this layer should connect it with all the layers. Got the point? It's the first one is all about dense layer. The next one is all about dropout layer. If I say dropout layer, what will happen is if one major challenge with our deep learning and machine learning is overfitting, and something as underfitting also. Underfitting may not, underfitting is also other challenge, but major challenge will be like overfitting. So what is overfitting is, if you give huge amount of data for the system, it will try to understand, or it will memorize all the inputs, and it will have the model something very great. But if you use any unseen data or new data, your model will not perform well. Okay, so we want to make the system very robust. For that, what we will do is we will say some dropout layer. So here one layer may be dropout, where in that if you say dropout layer, it will not have all the connections. Randomly, it will remove some of the connections. Say like if I have with respect to this, I will explain. If I have 2 connections in one time, it will make this output as 0. Even though if it computes, it will make the output as 0. Got the point? So in the meaning that it misses the particular input from that. So according by using all these things, it will make a 0, or it will avoid overfitting when we have a huge network on this. And the other important layers are embedding layer, or convolution layer, pooling layer, merge layer, and all the other things. So fundamentally, your network will not change. This will be your fundamental network. But whether you are going for CNN or RNN or RBM or autoencoder or something like this, then the layer will change. The layer will change according to the model. So if you are able to understand the fundamental of this how the deep learning should be created, then all the other things are very easy, correct? So dense layer we are able to understand. The dense layer is the very fundamental layer. All the layer will be connected. Next, we saw about dropout. Other than that, you can see all the other layers. So say like merge layer will take like 2 different networks, and it will take that output from 2 networks, and then it will give that to the next layer. Say like one network you can process text data, another network you can process numeric data, and sometimes you want to combine those 2, right? On the time you can use merge layer. And convolutional and pooling layer is mainly used in image data analytics, where image analytics. It's something like CNN kind of network is this convolutional neural network. It is nothing but it will take use of convolutional and pooling layer. So if you are able to understand all this layer, it is good for you. Okay. Now, till now what we are able to understand is what is input, what is neuron, what is activation function, how the activation function is happening, and all the other things. The next important parameter is learning. So here, actually, I already explained to you as someone is asked about this question. It is all about supervised learning. So in general, we have about supervised, unsupervised learning kind of concept. So here, what is supervised is, here that as we have the concept of back propagation, we are able to achieve this supervised learning. So what is supervised learning is, we know what could be the output. If we are unable to get that output, we want to update our model so that we are expecting that the system should provide us the correct output. Are you able to understand this point, back propagation? So initially we will take some few data, say like some data is training, some data is testing. We will make use of our training data to build a model, and then we will apply our tested data, and we will see the output, and accordingly we will update the weight, and we will fine tune that model, and finally we will get a best model. So for this we have a concept of loss function. So as I already explained, if you want for the test sample, any test sample, we will say like if pass means that it's a 100% certainty that, or 100% probability that it should come as pass. But if your output says like probability for S class is 0.87 and probability for fail is 0.13. It's a meaning that there is some error. 0.13 is the error. Actually, it should come as 1. So this 0.13 should be updated with all the other nodes weight. That is, it may be increase or decrease. That we have to do that. This is known as back propagation. Some other measurements is also available, say like mean squared error or something like this. So what is the mean squared error? Last slide I just saw about loss function, right? Very simple loss. Here you can have some squared error also. In that case, what will happen? We can have a high difference, say like a difference between 3 and 9. 3 will become 9, so loss will become 9. But if you have a difference is 9, then loss will be 81. So we are penalizing our model in a very big model. Say that so that your model will be updated, your weights will be updated with some good weight, so your model can converge very quickly. The next one is all about absolute error. We already saw about it, right? So other than that, we have mean absolute percentage error, mean square logarithmic error. All these errors are used to fine tune your weights. Okay. Now I am saying like you have to update the weight, but how to do that? It's very difficult. Actually, back propagation is something fine, but we just like that we can't update each and every weight. There is some way. So what is the way is, we have some way called optimization. Before optimization, I wish to explain you about if the data is categorical, say like pass fail. I have some if numerical, then fine. Numerical I can have we can have, say like if I want to get that output as 100, and if I get the output as 80, then I can understand that there is a error is called 20. In other way, I said like it's a probability, right? So how that probability is calculated is by using a concept called binary cross entropy. So it's maybe you already saw this the same formula in our decision tree construction or something like that, where it is nothing but it will try to find the entropy value for your outcome. Say like if have two possibilities, say like pass fail, then if I apply this probability of y log probability of y and 1 minus probability of no and all the other things, I will get some loss, right? This loss is nothing but the real loss what I have to update my weight. If I have multiple class, I may go for categorical cross entropy. That formula is nothing but loss equal to yi log to yi. That is not, it's the same as our decision tree entropy cross entropy calculation formula. Okay. Now we understood about there is a loss, and I have to update all the loss to my weight. But how to do that? For that, there is a helper is available for us. That helper is known as a optimizer. So the optimizer, what that optimizer will do is, it will understand how much I have to update and how optimizely I have to update the weights. So one of the things actually back propagation itself, it's optimization, as I already explained. So we have used, we will use our derivatives, partial derivatives, and all the other chain rules, and this will update the weights with all the nodes. Okay. For this, we should understand about some important terms, say like pass. So what is pass is, if one training sample, if is processed, if you are giving us one training sample as the input, and if you are getting output for the particular training sample, then we can say that as a pass. What is batch? The batch is nothing but, say like if I will take about 10 transaction as a whole, I am giving that as a input, and I am getting output for all the 10 training sample. If I get like this, then we can say there is a batch. Why I am saying this? So actually, I said like you have to update the weight. When should I update the weight? I can do for each and every iteration. If I get some output, I can update the weight. Otherwise, hello friends, are you there? Are you able to understand what I'm talking with this point?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So what I'm saying is, I will have about some training data and all about some test data. Okay. So I will pass my training sample. We have to construct the model. We will get the output, right? Based on the output, we should update our model. That is all about our supervised. Now, when should I update my model? That could be the question, right? So that for that we should understand about pass and batch. Now we have one concept called stochastic gradient descent. What it will do is, for each and every iteration of training sample, that is for each and every pass, you should update the weight. How to update the weight is, the new weight will be calculated as the already existing weight minus learning rate and loss. Learning rate is again another parameter which will be provided by our optimization algorithm. Say like we may say like 0.01, something like this. Then you will get some weight. We can understand that weight should be updated. Say like initially I have my weight is 0.8. Now you are having like the new weight is, if you multiply all these things, you are calculating like 0.7. So I have to update 0.7 as my new weight. Got the point what I'm talking? In that case, if I do for each and every transaction, if I use this stochastic gradient descent concept, it is good as it will update my model very efficiently. It's one way it is good, but another way it is bad as each and every iteration it should update the weight. So my output, my weight updation will take a lot of time, as well as I may not get the very neat optimization. So in general, they will go for mini batch. What is mini batches? They will take say like 32 training sample as a whole. They will use this 32 transaction and they will get some output. They will take the error for all the 32 transaction and they will update the weights in the back propagation. Or it may be power of 2 is always possible. So you will take some training sample, say like 32 transaction, we will apply to our model and we will get that output. If that output is not right, we will update. Something like each and every 32 transaction, we will move forward. Okay. Other than that, some of the other other optimization functions are available. Adam or something like ADA grade and all the other things are also some of the optimization. Okay, I can stop it here. We will go to some hands-on thing. Then we will come back here. So as I can understand that some document is already shared with you, one Google Colab document. Can you please open it in our Google Colab environment? Friends, can you do that? Did you receive that this IPython notebook? Can anyone answer my question? Interact with me.
Sir?
Did you receive any document from your coordinator? Coordinator madam said like she already sent that mail. Send that to you.
Participants, kindly check your WhatsApp group.
Yes, sir, we got it. We got this document.
Okay. Can you hope you know what Google Colab? Even if new to that, it's very simple to use. Actually, you can use colab.research.google.com. If you click on it, you'll get the page like this. Then here you can use this upload option. There you have your file. Just browse it and then upload it here. Can you do that? At least 2 to 3 of you say you are able to do that. I can move forward. Are you able to get this notebook?
Participants, could you able to do this? What our resource person is saying?
So please explain again it. What
Okay.
how we can do it?
Okay. You can you can search Google colab.research.gmail.com. I mean google.com. In a search window, you can search it.
Sayed sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Explain the step once again.
Yeah, I'm explaining. Are you here? Are you able to hear my voice? My
Yes, sir,
screen?
sir, your voice is audible, but some
Screen?
participants ask it once more in chat.
No. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, sir. It's visible.
I'm in Google colab.research.google.com. That screen.
That address is it's not clear because of that.
Okay, I will. Yeah. I will share it in chat box.
Yeah.
So open one Colab and you can find upload option there. Just click on upload and choose the file. I hope you may store the file in your computer, right? Search for that folder name, folder, and then upload it. If you upload, it will come like this. Are you able to do that? Any if you 3 of you say yes, I can move forward.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
1, 2 more.
Yes, sir.
1 more, please. If any one of you say yes, I can move forward.
Sir, continue, sir. Continue, sir.
Okay, thank you. So now here I just it's a very simple to use actually. They're using TensorFlow or using deep learning application in our system. It's not that much very big deal as Google Colab is available right now with us. It's GPU enabled, so you can develop simple applications, even some good applications, good size of applications. Then you can explore. If you are able to find it very interesting, you can go with your servers. So here we are taking models and we are creating the sequence model, then dense model. We already saw these two, and NumPy is for our Python activities. So here what we are doing is we want to generate about 1,000 students, about 1,000 students data with the 3 inputs. Say like our 3 inputs are age, number of hours of study, and then average previous test score. We want to generate that. And other than that, the 500 transactions for test data. So we are generating by using this 2 lines. Then here we are giving labels, 2 labels, say like 0 and 1 for to understand whether he is pass or fail. That we are giving it here. And then we are for our understanding, we want to see the training data. It will provide us training data output. So here you can see 3 inputs. It's the first one is for age, second one is for hours of study, and third one is for our previous test score. Actually, everything is already normalized as we are generating as the random with that option. So it's a random, it's a normalized value. So we don't want to go in normalization. It's the value is 0 in between 0 to 1. Then you can print our test data. So here you will get output as 0 and 1, and that is all about just I mean, it's all about our test data. And you can see the label also. It's here training data is 500 and test data is the training data is our 1,000 and test data is 500. Correct? Now, can anyone explain what I am doing in here? I already explained to you so that you may understand up to this line. About 4 lines you can understand. Can you explain what all these things are happening, or what is happening here?
Sequential modeling is used.
Correct. Then
So input 3.
input is 3. We have three attributes, so we have 3 inputs. Very good. Then
First activation function is ReLU, and
actually in the first layer we will not have any activation function. You should understand that as input is 3, then it should create 5 nodes.
5 nodes.
Correct? In that all the 5 nodes, ReLU activation function is applied.
Yeah.
Correct? Then next.
Next layer consists of 4 nodes.
Yes.
And activation function we are using is ReLU.
Very good.
And next layer it consists of 1 node.
Only
And
one node.
activation is Sigmoid.
Very good. Now, as of now, what we are able to understand is, say here here the empty space is there. So 3 input nodes. Then how many, ma'am? 5 are?
5.
5, right? And next one will be 4, and next one will be 1. Did we create this kind of structure? Is it easy to understand now?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you. Then next one is all about, we have to use this compile command to, I said like we will have a training sample and test sample, and we should understand about what is the error it is showing. Accordingly, we have to optimize it, right? For that, we have used binary cross entropy. Why we have used binary cross entropy?
So it will convert into 0 and 1.
Not it convert. Actually, we have categorical class label, say like pass or fail. So it is a binary, only 2 categorical data. So binary, and cross entropy, as we have to convert as entropy. We have to calculate the entropy. That for that we have used cross entropy. Then optimizer Adam optimizer. That you understood, right? Then finally there is a matrix called accuracy. Why we have that accuracy is, that is after your model we want to apply our test sample to see the accuracy. Shall we see that how it works? From here you can understand that this model.summary says like there is one input layer, and this is all about one output shape. That's nothing but the first hidden layer, second hidden layer, and final output. The input, we already know that input is 3, and these are the output shape. Okay. The same way we have the other model also. Here I have only 2 layers, right? The first layer is all about input layer with one hidden layer with 5, and directly I have output. Understood this model? So now you are able to understand the model, right? How to design a model,
Yes.
how to include the layers. Yes.
What is this model dot summary?
Model summary is nothing but what we have created. It just show what is happening.
Okay.
I already explained. No, this is all about model dot summary. This is nothing but our summary. So this is given by that same architecture, the summary. Say like input, we know that input is 3, that we know, correct? The first hidden layer consists of 5 nodes. Here 5 nodes are available. Understood?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes.
The next one is all about consists of 4 nodes,
Yes.
4 neurons. That's it. And then finally we have only 1. That's the meaning. This is what we are visualizing it, right? By seeing this, we are able to visualize the same thing. And then the parameters are but how many inputs are given to that particular node. Say like if I have 5, so here 1, right? It will connect to all the 5. So first one is 5, the second one is 5, 10, third one is also 5, 15, and each and every one will have some kind of bias value. So that will also 1, 5. So total will be 20. Got this point? Parameter.
Yes, sir. Yes.
The same way I have provided another model to understand. So you are able to understand. Now we are doing what we are doing is here we are applying our test training data to the model. We have constructed the model. Now we are applying the model, right? So here I am saying like batch size is 32. What is the meaning of this batch 32? What I explained this?
Number of students.
Actually, input. What is the training? What is the size of our input?
1000.
1000, right?
Yeah.
I said like there is some. I will go to that slide so that you can understand. I said that there is a understanding about pass and batch. Pass is nothing but each and every training sample given and output getting the output. Batch is nothing but sorry. Batch is nothing but combining few training sample and give us the input. Stochastic gradient descent is the optimization where this optimization talks about taking one training sample and get some loss. For each and every training sample, I may get the loss, right? For each sample, will I get the loss? Say like the first transaction, the output should be pass, but pass, as I already said, we are saying like probability 0.87 is the probability for yes. So is there any error?
Yes, sir.
This error should be updated, right? If I do for each and every transaction, if I apply stochastic gradient descent, this will take each and every training sample, apply to the model, get the result, whatever the error, it will update. It is good for sometimes, but it is bad for sometimes also. It will take a lot of time, correct? The computation will be, it will take a lot of time as each and every time it is updating the weight. Rather than that, we may go for batch. What is a batch is? We can combine, say like about 32 input transactions. Say out of 32, about say like 10 transaction contains pass and remaining transaction contains fail. For each and every transaction, we can get some error, right?
Yes.
All the errors, say like 0.8 and 0.2, something. So total there will be some weight, some error. That error will be updated in a back propagation. That is, each and every 32 transaction will be taken. It will apply our model, and the loss, whatever the loss will be getting, that will be updated rather than one at a time. Now we can go with 32 at a time or 64 at a time, 128 at a time. So it will actually, the error may be, the optimization may be a little tough, but it will speed up our computation. Understood this point or not?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So here we are giving like 32. So out of 1000 transaction, 32 transaction will be taken and model will be applied, error will be taken, back propagation will happen. So after 33rd transaction will have applied with the new weight. Why? All the 32 transaction gave me some weight. That weight is already updated. Are you guys able to understand this? So we are updating the weight for each and every 32 transactions.
What is this epochs here, sir?
I have to do the same kind of activity for 10 times. Say like 10 different times I have to do this. Different 32 transactions. I will show that. So you can see this. Now what we are doing is we are taking some training sample input and we are taking some batch by batch, right? 32 at a time is taken. So something like that, 32 we are doing, and we are completing one complete transaction. That is 1000 transaction will be divided into 32, and one time we will update the weight. In that case, it is known as one epoch.
Okay.
Now again I have to repeat the same activity with different 32 combinations. Then another one epoch will be over.
You mean to say out of 1000, we will take 32 at a time, we'll run it, and again, like iteration process, right?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, sir.
So this
32
1000 will be repeated 10 different times. 1000 transactions will be applied to our model 10 different times.
Okay.
Not one time, 10 different times. So understand the complexity of the problem. So each and every time we have to calculate, update weight should be updated. All the things are there. Because not only we are saying like it requires lot of computation. It is not a single step.
Yes,
All
yes.
the 1000 transactions should go here as 32 at a time. So 1000 transaction is over right now. So one epoch is over. Again another 1000 transaction. I mean same 1000 transaction in a different combination of 32. It will be fetched randomly and weight will be updated. So something like that, the process will go. So
Okay.
here we go with this much. So about 10,000 transactions are processed. But we have only 1000 transactions. But 1000 transactions will be repeated 10 times.
Yes, yes.
Now, if you do like this, then only your model will be converged. You will get a better model. For that only we are saying like we need huge data. If you have huge data, your model will be better as it will see that and then it will update. It's the meaning of supervised. It will each and every time it will update the weight, and then finally, if huge data is trained, then your model is good. Okay, now here it's nothing but you have created the model. We want to predict for our test sample. Now only just here only the test sample will come. Got it? So this is how it's predictions. Then we can have the other measures like accuracy and all the other things we can apply it here, and we can understand what is the performance of the system. Are you able to understand this point up to this point? Any doubt on this?
No, sir, no.
No. So this is I put everything together. Leave this. Now it is your job. Can you explain what is happening with this code? The same kind of code, but a small change I did. So can anyone help me to understand this? But here only one difference is actually I have validation data set. I will explain that later. But by seeing this, you can understand that could be my objective. So, like by seeing this hereafter, if you see the Keras code, you will be able to understand what is happening. Can anyone help me? Come on, the same thing. It's not too much. Very simple to understand. Who is ready to help me to understand this architecture? Come on, we already reached the time. I may not ask too much of deviation from the coordinator will shout at me then.
We didn't get, sir. np.random.random.
No, it's a random. It's just randomly we are generating. Leave those too much of internal. It's a Python code. You can understand this very clearly. Just understand what is happening. How many training samples are created?
6,000.
6,000 training samples. Okay, very good. 2,000 validation data set and 2,000 test data set. So what is validation data set? I will let you know after this thing. Just you can. It's very simple to understand. Don't no bother about it. Okay. Now can you tell me what is happening in the model?
Number of inputs are 10.
Very good.
The layers connections are 64.
Okay. So number of input is 10 means we are creating 10 different attributes. Say like initially we had only 3 attributes: age, number of hours, and something like that. Something like that we can have 10 different attributes. Okay.
10
then we have
features.
yes 10 features. Okay. Then first layer consists of
64 neurons,
very
32
good.
neurons, 16
Very good.
neurons, 8 neurons, 4
good.
neurons. Last one
Six
is
symbol?
1. Yes.
One. Last will be the output. Okay, very good. Then what we are doing it here, compile. We are creating our configure our model
Yes.
by using a optimizer called Adam optimizer. I already said loss function is also required and metrics is also required. That is, we can understand what is our accuracy. So here we are always, as you know, that model construction and model usage. This is all about model construction, and the last point is all about model usage. That is, we have our test sample. This test sample will be given, and we will understand what is this output. Got it?
Yeah. X train, Y train means, sir?
Training actually, I have to give us a test sample. I have to give a test sample actually.
Okay.
Try
Then
a
you
small
go
mistake.
into batch wise, it is 64.
Yes,
64. Then 10 epochs will created.
correct.
Then you
So
go
out
to
of your 6,000 transactions, each and every 64 transaction will be taken, and you will apply. When we get the output, you will update the weight. It will be repeated for 10 different times. Got it? Then another one component is validation data set. I will explain that now. Is it okay? Is it comfortable? Are you comfortable, all of you? Easy to understand?
Yes, sir.
Does it make sense having this session?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Sure.
So we have we saw about the model configuration. Then finally, it's a validation data set. So validation data set is very important in deep learning, as actually we heard about the training data and test data. Training and test is known to the say like if you have 100% of the data, you can divide that data into 60, 20, 20. It's not always true. You can have your own way. If you have huge data, even it is possible that 95% for training, 2% for testing, and 3% for validation, something like this. It's some ratio. So what is the meaning of validation data set? Is actually the validation data set is the unseen data. That is unseen by your model. So you will have your training data. By using your training data, you will construct the model. Then you will use the test data to understand how it works. Based on the accuracy, whether the accuracy is reduced or not, and all the other things, that is fine. But we will take that kind of model to the real time. But here, before taking that into real time, you should have a validation data set to ensure you are able to get a better accuracy, or what could be the real accuracy you are getting. As you are using training and test sample again and again in the model, maybe overfitting may be always available. So this 20% data is completely, it's a new data, something like this. That is, even we will divide the data into 3 parts and we will take out, and we will not use it for any other purpose other than in the last model. So after fitting your model, you will use your validation data set to understand how your validation, your system is performing really in a new data set. So that's the way how it is defined. So here we will say like validation data set, and according to the validation data set only we will understand how it works. So if you are very much comfortable with all these things, I can take you to that the new one research paper. It's not new, actually it's 2018. It's 2 years old. It's about 2 years old. Now I ask any one of you to help me to understand what is happening in this paper. Can you tell me what is happening? Are you able to understand that architecture? That's the only question. Can anyone help? You can give it a try, then only you can understand all the other frameworks. Then I can assess myself whether I gave the session in a proper way or not. So what is training data?
What, sir?
So can you explain this model, how the model is flow working?
Okay. We put some data, then
Yes.
then we train that data using CNN model. And
Yes.
after testing, if it is not after testing we train the data. If it is not trained properly, we again train that.
That's it. Okay. So now by seeing this, we are able to understand, right? By seeing this, we are able to understand what they are doing, what they did.
They train, testing, and evaluating.
Correct, ma'am. That all these things are fine, but are you able to understand the logic behind what they are doing? So they are taking some input data, they are converting data into some format, they are normalizing. I already explained, and then they are converting the data into image format. That is nothing but some format. They are doing it for CNN model. So we are able to understand about what is our deep learning. Now we have to understand about what is CNN. That's not a very big deal. If you spend about 1 hour, 2 hours, you can understand what is deep CNN model. In CNN, we will have convolutional pooling. It's a combination of these two. They have some configuration, something like that. If you are unable to understand this, not a problem. But they are taking the data, they are applying deep learning in here CNN model. Something like we used our dense layer, right? So rather than dense, they have used CNN here. Then they are using repeatedly. They are doing using with the training testing data. They are getting the output.
Said sir, you are using ANN, right?
I am started with ANN. I showed you only DNN only, deep neural network.
Deep neural network.
Yes, ANN is artificial neural network with the if you have only one hidden layer, we can call this as a ANN. If you have multiple hidden layer, we can call that as a deep neural network.
Okay, sir.
It's a fundamental one. All the other will follow the same model where you are, rather than having a dense layer, you are changing that layer as CNN or pool or some other layer.
Okay.
Is it interesting? You will understand what I'm talking till now?
Yes, sir. Obviously.
I am done with my presentation. We can spend some time for question answer or doubt clearing session. After that, I can wind up. Sorry, I took about 8 minutes of your time, and I may take about another 2 to 3 minutes of time or 5 minutes of time based on your interaction. Thanks for all of you for your patient listening, and hope I think that I tried my level best to give you some input. Hope this will help you to in your future, and try to use this in your future research. And research is too important. Thank you
sir,
very much.
Give me your mail ID or something, sir.
I will share my presentation with the coordinator, madam. She will share that with you. It will consist of mail ID as well as my phone number. You may make use of it. I'm really interested with the research. If anyone wants to do research under me, or if you want to jointly do some research, always I welcome you to do that. My area of research is all about data analytics, and mainly I am working on malware data analytics and recommendation system. Recently published many papers in IEEE Access and other international journal conferences. Kindly search my name in Google Scholar, and if you are highly interested to do research, yes, always welcome, and jointly we can do a lot of research.
Sir, which university, sir, you are?
BIT, ma'am. May I know your name, ma'am?
My name Leda.
Okay, where are you from?
I am from Kerala.
Okay, I am Syed from VIT University, Chennai.
VIT University. Okay,
Yes.
sir. That's why I'm asking your mail ID or something, sir.
Yeah, I will share, ma'am. I will share that with all
No
the
problem,
participants.
ma'am. You can get
It is there. Yeah, I hope you can see this. Even I will share this with the coordinator, madam. She will definitely she will circulate to or give this PPT to all of you. PPT will be shared.
Okay, sir. Okay.
And already
Thank you,
shared
sir.
the Colab, so you can take it.
Okay, sir.
Thank you. Yeah. If you have any doubt or some kind of clarification is required, you may ask me right now.
Sir, please check that chat box, sir.
Chat box. Oh, ma'am, about 42. Sorry, I didn't see that chat box for a long time.
Okay, sir, no problem.
So I will go from bottom, so it may be easy for you.
Yes,
First,
sir.
maybe like how to decide how many nodes we can keep in each layer and any thumb rule. So there is no thumb rule for this. It's a trial and error. Actually, that's a very major challenge with deep learning, designing the deep learning. We are more is always we have to test with the different number of layers and number of nodes in each layer, and we have to come up with a better solution. Then great session. Thank you, sir.
Sir, and one question: any criteria to identify number of nodes one should keep?
Sorry, any?
Sir, any criteria to identify number of nodes one should keep?
This. Yeah, ma'am. I am the same question is asked by Google also. There is no rule to decide how many nodes and how many layers are should be there in each and every layer or each and every node. It's very difficult for us to do that. We have to do a lot of experiments again and again and again to understand which model is giving you the better result. Did I answer my question?
Sir, you said deep learning is mostly prefer or mostly good accuracy in large data set, right?
Yes.
Sir, where we get those such data sets, sir?
Nowadays, actually, academically, huge data is available, and everywhere you can have a huge data. It's minimum of 5 terabyte to 10 terabyte of data is available right now in the cloud.
Yeah,
It's already available, and say even if you don't have that much of data, there are some models are available in deep learning called a generative model where you can generate yourself. That is, say like if I say like some images, 1,000 images only I have for with some particular application. What I have to do is I have to generate the same kind of images multiple times by using generative models. That's the way. So logically, some kind of similar images will be generated. Then I will use those images for model building.
Oh, in one of the FDP, one particular faculty provide the link for the data set.
Yes,
So when we move there, we get that much amount of data set like that.
Yeah, definitely. Actually, if you are you doing any PhD? Are you doing PhD?
No, sir. I'm thinking about that.
You are thinking about it, right? No. If you are very specific about PhD, and then my suggestion is choose some papers, some IEEE transaction papers or something like that. Definitely, they will mention about where their data is available.
Okay.
My request is, or my point over here is, take that data set and work out so that you can show what is the existing system provides and what is your output provides.
Okay.
Sorry, what your proposed system gives the results, so that you will be able to compare your experimental results. So always
So-
refer paper and take that data set. That is good for you to propose your model.
So that link for any searching of papers, research papers, sir?
Ma'am, IEEE access is easy to access. Actually, it's open access, IEEE access. And IEEE transaction is too good.
IEEE transactions.
Yeah, I will share that IEEE transactions with now we have big data analytics journal in IEEE.
Which one, sir?
Sir,
Big data.
Big.
Sorry, I'm taking a lot of time.
Okay, definitely.
Coordinator, ma'am?
one more question.
No,
Terragon-
I need permission from the coordinator.
Okay, sir, you can take, no problem.
Okay, thank you. Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, sir.
Someone asked some question. Yeah.
IEEE transactions, right, sir? Via
Actually,
Google, we can.
Yeah, you can get it.
Okay, sir. Okay, thank you, sir.
And TKD, IEEE knowledge and data engineering also good.
Knowledge and.
I will share I shared all these things in a chat box now.
Okay.
Sir, one question about attention layer.
Tell me about attention layer. I'm not sure, ma'am.
Okay, sir.
Not very comfortable with the attention layer. I'm not sure about it.
Participants, any more query?
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon, sir.
Yes, sir.
Sir, generally,
Yes,
if
ma'am.
you, yes, sir. Generally, in review papers, sorry, in review papers, sir, some authors they would focus on their review and how many number of papers they reviewed, and some authors also they simply say about data, but a few authors doesn't provide us the source or link for their data that whatever they prepared. So how can we approach to them, sir?
Ma'am, actually, always you can write to them. If you contact a corresponding author, definitely they will give the link. Even they will share their code also sometimes. If they really do some research with real interest, definitely they will do. And most of the authors who are all actually, if you see IEEE access, when we publish the paper, they are asking about the code as well as all the most of the things they will ask already, and they will keep us that as the back end. If you ask us, definitely they will give us.
Okay, is it a rule, sir, that we have to approach them through official mail ID kind of thing?
Not like that, ma'am. Actually, the paper, the corresponding author will be there. It's the meaning of that corresponding author is if you need something, you can ask that author. So if you send the mail to them, they will reply to you. I already got some so many replies. If I have something, I will gently ask. I will get that reply from them. And foreign processor too good in if you like their interest and if you interact with the research mind, definitely they will reply to you.
Okay.
So actually, you should be very point in what you are asking. Don't say so many blah blah blah. Rather than that, you can mention like, I read your paper. I like this concept. I need I need the data set link. Can you please provide? If you do like this, definitely they will reply.
I do have sent a paper to some authors, sir, so I didn't get any reply. So the reason I thought is I have sent it from my personal mail ID. So is
Not like that, ma'am. No, not required, ma'am. You can do you can use any mail ID. They will not see whether it's official or unofficial. Nothing they will.
Okay.
If you send through your official mail ID, it will be too good for them to understand whether you are correct guy or not. But even if you use other email ID, they will definitely help you. They know that it's their research. If you will refer it, so always it's good for them to share that code as well as the data.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your wonderful presentation and good doubt clearing session.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hopefully, the last session is always is a consolidated session, right?
Yes,
So
sir.
hopefully
We are having one stress management and validatory functions, sir.
Okay,
Thank you,
fine.
sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Dear participants, our last session is about stress management and validity address. That is will given by our principal. So all of you join us 2 p.m. as usual.
Is there any test, ma'am? Today they said
Yes, ma'am. We are having a test that will be posted in our classroom, ma'am. Or otherwise, we will give the link. We will give the
Okay.
link for online test and as well as feedback, ma'am.
2 to 3:30 session, right?
Yeah, in 2 to 3:30.
Okay.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, we will join. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.